Welcome to the Max Bet Podcast, a podcast dedicated to everything gaming. I'm Landon Jones, here with Mike McKiskey. Let's get started.
What is good, man? How you doing?
Doing well. Moved into the new downtown condo. We got the studio set up.
We're live. First time doing this in the same spot.
Isn't that crazy?
It is a little crazy.
You
look the
think
same.
that.
Like, it doesn't feel that much different, but it's different.
It is definitely different looking straight at your face as you're talking instead of on a Zoom call.
Yeah, now you can't. You're right. Yeah, because otherwise you're looking down and you're like, wait, I'm looking at you, but the camera makes you think I'm not looking at you. Zoom is weird. This is way better.
It's a whole different program. But yeah, man, we're stoked to be here. Happy to be here. Happy to be in Vegas.
And then walking around. So I don't usually come downtown just because I don't live over here, but haven't been here.
Yeah.
What a cast of characters you're seeing down here, huh? Like the world is back. Fremont Street is in full swing.
I've gone twice because I have to get out of my house, obviously. And we went on a Saturday night, and it seemed I've been downtown on a New Year's, and I'm pretty sure it was more packed than the night I went on New Year's.
Man.
It's just wild. Everybody's just getting out. They want to be out of their houses. But I can tell you the cast of characters downtown.
Oh, it's unbelievable. You got them all. Everyone that wants pictures. You got half-naked women, half-naked guys. You got Snuffleupagus running around. I mean, you never know, Rob Bone. That one's for you.
Who's Snuffleupagus?
He's the big elephant mammoth in Big Bird, Sesame Street.
Because I did see a woolly mammoth down there.
Yeah, I just assume it's Snuffy.
And we saw Chewy.
Oh, nice.
Everyone's
They
down
should be
there.
friends.
Yeah, they
big,
should be
hairy,
friends.
lovable creatures.
They probably hang out after the workouts. Yeah, it's crazy though. I mean, we walked from Container Park down to the plaza and then back, and it took us an hour. Get drinks on the way, but it's almost like dinner and a movie.
Yeah,
you just go. You see 15 different shows. And then you cruise back, and that's about all I could take because I get uncomfortable. And there's a lot.
It's a lot of people, man.
And it's a lot of like.
And some of those people are not
strange cast of
mentally secure.
characters.
Yeah, so you're looking at that going, well, this is interesting.
It is interesting.
Have you gambled yet since you've been here?
Yes.
You win?
We did. We won a little bit last night. Not a ton, but we were just playing teams and running around playing a few games, playing Lightning Link and Dragon Link. And we're talking to Scotty Olive next week, so that'll be pretty
fun.
cool.
Yeah, we're excited to fanboy over his creativity. Speaking of Scotty Olive and his crew, you know who our friends over at EK Gaming just released? All the new game performance reports and all the new cabinet performance reports, and they're flexing right now.
They're flexing.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to see everything coming out of COVID. We've been developing games
for this
in the
time.
downturn, and now all these new titles are being released, and we finally get a full view on what's working. And Eilers has that data, and it's fascinating to see because it wasn't the same data I saw a year ago.
Yeah, no, I know.
I can tell you that for sure.
Tell you that for free. Yeah, no doubt. It's been interesting, and it'll be interesting to ask a guy like that if was there less pressure in the off time to build games, or did it just persist, right? Because you're going, well, hey, no one's taking new games for 3 to 6 months based on everybody being shut down. Does that give you time to pump the brakes, or do you have to go twice as hard to be ready? Like,
I don't think Aristocrat was too worried about the funding when they were making money during the downturn.
Have you heard of Lightning Link?
They have all the cash, they were just like, ramp it up. We got free time.
Yeah, no doubt. Speaking of cash, today's guest.
Yeah, he's the cash man.
He's the cash man. So we got Joel Simkins, who is the head of gaming and leisure managing director over at Truist Securities. So from what I understand, he's brokered a lot of deals in our biz. So a lot of times when you see so-and-so bought this other company or so-and-so went public, like Joel is right in the middle of it. So
involved or knows everything about it.
Yeah.
Because the pre-call we did, that guy's dialed. He knows a lot about gaming.
I was like, I just filled up 4 pages of notes and it's just a 15-minute pre-call. So yeah, this will be fun today, man.
Yeah, I'm excited to chat with him and kind of get his perspective on what's up and coming and where Wall Street, we'll call it, is putting all their dollars especially after COVID, right?
Yeah, for sure.
The world has shifted.
Yeah,
the world has shifted.
It is shifted, and it is more. We'll be interested to see where it goes. So, should we get him in? Put him on the hot seat.
You ready to rock and roll?
Joel, what is going on, man? Thanks for joining us here. First ever guest at the MaxBet studio.
It's an honor and a privilege, guys. Thank you very much.
It dawned on me as I was driving here this morning that you will be an answer to a trivia question forever. They'll be like, hey, when we're down the road, going, who was ever first?
Yeah.
Joel
Thank
Simkins,
you.
ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, appreciate you coming in, man. So you're from the East Coast, came out west for a bit here. Do you always just wake up and run? I mean, you text me a picture. It was like 6 a.m. You had already clipped off almost 4 miles, just getting after it.
Yeah, start the trip right, especially before I'm running around Vegas. Do it healthy. It's a little bit different than, back in the day, maybe when I was in my 20s, coming out here and going out drinking. So when people are coming back from the nightclubs, I'm usually going out for a run.
You're seeing them? Yeah.
Exactly.
Wait, did you go out at all last night? Or is
No, I landed and went
strictly
right to bed.
business?
Yeah, I'm
I
pretty
like
boring. 2 kids at home.
Yeah, exactly. I know the toddler life. You're like, hey, I get to sleep with no one jumping on me or no one kicking the door at 3 a.m. or whatever's going to happen. Yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah, I made the mistake going out with the friends last night downtown.
People
flew in to help us make this happen. This is a big deal, right? So we went out to Fremont Street, which is now my backyard, and man, it's a wild ride down there.
It's
like a show and it's insane. It's 15 different shows in one walk.
That's true. You never know what you're going to get down there. You get the,
Vegas is picking up. I've been out here 3 times since the pandemic, and each time I come out here, it feels a little bit busier. So really encouraging to see Las Vegas coming back strongly.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, so let's get into that. So you're coming here more and more. So it's good to see the perspective from somebody traveling in, feeling like it's busier. But specifically, so you work in investment banking. So for you as a local here, for me here, and somebody in your position say that, I'm like, this is great because that ultimately good for the economics. But so how did you get into gaming? Like I know you're in finance, investment banking side. Like what's your story? How did you get into this crazy
Literally fell
world?
into it.
Yeah.
So I graduated from Hofstra University in 1998.
Yep.
Was looking for a job.
The Harvard of Long Island.
The Harvard of Long Island. The world wasn't beating a path to my door.
Right.
I ended up just doing a lot of networking, and 9 interviews later, I got a job at Moody's, which is a bond rating agency.
Yes.
And the last person I met was their gaming, lodging, leisure analyst, and I pretty much begged him. I said, listen, I will work incredibly hard for you, whatever it takes to make it happen.
That's awesome.
And he happened to cover, gaming, and 20 plus years later, I've made a whole career of it.
That's
Go figure.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's wild.
That's hilarious. So I only know Moody's really. I mean, you hear about it, but from the movie The Big Short, where they were mad at Moody's for not, rating their bonds or whatever. So that was nice of him to let you in the biz and kind of give you a spot after all those doors. And so you actually entered the space on the analytical side, right?
On the analytical side, did that for 15 plus years and was an equity research analyst, ultimately at Credit Suisse.
Yep.
I know you interviewed somebody in the past, Chad Bainan, who used to work for me way back in the day, but did the research thing for 15 plus years, had a lot of fun, learned a heck of a lot of the business, and was sort of looking for that career pivot.
Yeah.
And then, crossed over what they call the wall to the investment banking side, where we're helping people, raise capital. We're helping advise companies when they're looking to sell, go public, et cetera. Sure. And that's really what it's about in a nutshell. Investment banking is sort of the intersection of ideas and capital. So my job is to sit down with CEOs, CFOs, board members, and give them advice on how to grow their business, or if they're looking to transact, acquire something, sell, give them advice on that, and really bring a lot of perspectives to the table.
Yeah, it's interesting. So you mentioned jumping over the wall from analyst to banker. Why is that so hard line? Like it feels like we talked to Chad and he's like, well, no, we're not on the banking side. Yeah. It does seem like very separate.
I think it just has a lot to do with history. It's just sort of the way the industry was structured. It was just very rare for an analyst to come over to that side. But, at the end of the day, investment banking is a relationship business. And it's certainly important to know people. And having been around gaming for 20 plus years, I know where the opportunities are. Sure. When you're an analyst, you have these ideas, but you can't always, execute upon them. Like, gee, it'd be really nice if this company acquired that company. In this role, I get to help make that happen. And it's just a heck of a lot of fun and really interesting to help companies grow ultimately.
Yeah. I want to rewind a little. So you fell into banking, or you didn't fall into gaming, but you fell into gaming. Yeah. What was your knowledge of the gaming business before you fell into it? Like, what did you know about the casino world?
Very little. I mean, probably what I saw on the movie Casino. But
Rounders.
It's funny. And when I look back upon it, it's funny because there was a couple of moments as a kid that I probably might have been around gaming and or really the concept of valuation. But 2 things jump out at me. I remember going to Atlantic City as a young child, and I might have pulled the reel on the lever on a slot machine with my parents.
We've all done that.
1980 something. They weren't really tracking that.
10-year-old Joel just banged one out. Yeah, no big deal.
Yeah, and then I do remember in high school, I grew up in upstate New York, riding my bicycle to Saratoga.
Oh wow!
And placing a couple of probably illegal horse wagers. When I was 16 or 17 years old. So there was definitely some green shoots of being around gaming at a young age.
That's funny. We've noticed a lot of folks lately have been saying the early interactions have been horse racing. So whether it's Brooks or
that's right.
Dr. Brett, right? So now Joel.
Yep.
That's hilarious.
That was my first bet, was a horse race as well. And this old man sat down, and I put my girlfriend's dad at the time had a horse in the mix, right? And so he's like, yeah, go down. I went to Palms. I remember I was in college. I put $50 for it to win.
Oh, wow.
And it showed. It's got second place, but I thought the horse was going to win. This old man was next to me. I was like, oh, my gosh.
You're stoked.
I lost, and the old man turns and he looks at me. He's like, you're actually happy you lost that bet.
Yeah.
Because he's like, the first bet that I made, I won, and I'm still here.
Chasing it 50 years later. That's hanging out.
Got to start young.
Funny.
That's wild. So you mentioned advising CEOs on some of these different, strategic initiatives. I've actually heard a few of the CEOs that we now both know call you the CEO whisperer. So is that just part of that, or like, is there a secret sauce? Because it sounds like you have a pretty good batting average in terms of what you've been advising on. Or do you just hide the losses? I mean, how do we look at that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, you just have to keep on pitching.
Right, right.
You guys sell slot machines. You got to show up with ideas. You got to try to be helpful.
Sure.
But, that is the beauty of this job. And that's really what's a lot of fun is you have access to people, up and down the stream. And, many people that I've known in this industry, I met them very early in their career where they might have been, take case in point, your CEO at AGS, David Lopez. I met him when he was a sales rep.
Right.
And, maybe there's a future for you guys, CEOs somewhere.
I hope so.
But, you get to see people develop through their career. And
Sure.
then lo and behold, they're running companies. So it's, again, I'm very fortunate to know these folks and be able to bring these opportunities to bear.
Yeah, that's wild.
So what are you chasing now?
Ooh.
What's the big expanding region or market in gaming? What's the biggest expanding sector?
Sure. I mean, I'll tell you, in the last year, I've seen more change in the last year than I've seen in 20 years. And I'm sure you guys, track it pretty closely. But all the activity in sports betting and online gaming, it is just absolutely fascinating. I'm dealing with companies even before they have $1 of revenue in the door, where they're thinking about monetizing the business or sort of who they can talk to from a partnership perspective, where they can raise capital. But, I think we are finally at that point where there's real convergence between bricks and clicks. And this industry is going to be changed inevitably, I think, for the positive, going forward. So, as you've probably followed, you've heard of SPACs. That's a new phenomenon. But there's just a lot of excitement going on where there's going to be tremendous change across the sector, whether it's on the payment side, sports betting, iGaming. I think we'll see a lot of really fun and interesting stuff happen. And really, this industry is becoming increasingly global, right?
Yeah.
A couple of weeks ago, there was an announcement where, Bally's, for instance, which used to be called Twin River, just announced they're acquiring a company called GameSys in the UK that was a online gaming operator. So I think you're going to see more and more convergence of companies coming together all across the world that have unique technologies and sort of resources to bear that ultimately make them bigger and stronger gaming companies globally.
Yeah, that's wild. So you mentioned SPAC. I have heard a lot about that, but just like a 2-minute education on. So it stands for Special Purpose Acquisition Company. Yeah.
Sure.
So is it as easy as just 3 guys or 3 entities throw some money in a bucket and go, we're going to buy sports companies, and that's what we go do? Or how would you describe it? So maybe not everybody
Yes
knows.
and no. And I think there's going to be ebbs and flows around that capital, and there's a little bit of tightening in the SPAC market lately. But really, it's just another way for folks to access capital, particularly from a venture capital perspective. If you've got a great growth story or technology company, and you can sort of project a few years out in terms of what type of business you're going to have.
Sure.
It's really targeting that investment capital to take a company public, but perhaps sooner on a different path than you would have historically. But there's obviously a ton of interesting things going on. Obviously, the seminal transaction that kind of got people excited about SPACs and gaming was DraftKings and SB Tech, and the rest has sort of followed with a number of transactions in the space.
Interesting.
That's wild.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. It's crazy to me to see how much COVID has kind of launched us into a new technological phase in gaming, because we've conditioned players now to be comfortable with their gadgets. We've conditioned players to be comfortable with apps because they had to be, right? They were sitting at home. And then not only that, it just seems like the government red taping is kind of being let up a little bit. And we've always had the technology. We just didn't know how to implement it. And we were being pushed back by the players. We were being pushed back by the government. And now after COVID, it's like everybody's like, let's go. And you're like, oh my gosh.
Take the handcuffs off a little.
This is a wild ride. This is it's like a tsunami of
I think you hit the nail on the head. And it's, we're at that tipping point in the sector where we've got the technology, we have the capabilities, but now this is a win-win-win for everybody. It's a win for the operators. It's a win for the players. It's a win for the regulators because they can track, a lot of the things that are going on. So we were talking about earlier, cashless gaming, I think will roll out, in full force over the next couple of years. And I'm not saying, my 80-something-year-old in-laws who are used to pulling out $20 and putting in a slot machine, I'm not saying that's going away, but folks that are of a younger age that are comfortable with technology are used to using Venmo or payments on their phone. That's how they're going to want to transact, at a slot machine, for instance, in the future.
Was there anything you guys ever invested in? Like you were super excited about technology before COVID and you're like, you obviously never put all your eggs in one basket, but you were so excited about this one technology that just kerplumped.
Not necessarily on my side. I can't invest in gaming, unfortunately, but I'll tell you one thing, and maybe I know where you're going. So when I was a research analyst, I'd say made a name for myself calling out server-based gaming, and this was in the mid-2000s, and a certain large slot machine company was investing in this technology, and just the market wasn't ready for it, and it ultimately did not get adopted. But if we look at gaming today, it's all generally server-based gaming. It was just took another 10 to 15 years to develop.
So it's got to be an interesting side of that on the human element, because like what I understand is when you made that call, you were the only one. So there was like 23, 24 guys going, no, it's all good. And you're going, I don't see it. I don't believe in it. And you were right.
Yeah.
But how does that feel to step outside the pack? Like, is that a pack mentality business, or is there rewards for the rebels? Like, how does that usually work?
Yeah, I was an up and coming analyst, and I think I had some great advice from people who'd done the job before me. And said, Joel, you've got to make a name for yourself. You sort of, what's the Mike Tyson phrase? Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. So let's try to punch somebody in the mouth and see what happens. And I know Eilers is a sponsor for you guys. He did not ask me to. He doesn't know I'm coming on this podcast. But I was sort of the Eilers before Eilers. Right. It was really just going around and calling. I think I probably surveyed 15 or 20 slot managers that said, "Hey guys, do you need this technology? Right. Do you want it?" And this is really coming off Ticket In, Ticket Out, where they'd spent millions and millions of dollars, and there just wasn't really a clear and demonstrable need. But when I made that call, it was pretty contrarian, and I think there were 23 analysts at the time. I had a sell rating. I was the only one with a sell. But they were to be fair to that company, they were 70% plus market share dominant. It's sort of like if you're coming off being the Yankees or the Patriots and you've won just Super Bowl after Super Bowl, you can't really get it. It's hard to get better. Right. You can only go down, and that was kind of the thesis.
He just got one less Christmas card that year.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you're right. He's like, that's okay, but probably more money.
We've all mended fences.
Winners get paid. So when you talk about cashless, I'm interested to see, especially from your perspective, because where we sit, it's a flurry of activity. You got obviously Sightline's doing big moves. It feels like anybody who's doing land-based systems has got some foray into it. Even on the fintech side. Is there going to be a point where that's essentially just commoditized, or do you think there'll be special sauce for all these guys even 3-5 years from now?
Yeah, I think long term could be commoditized, but I think it bottom line it is the future, right? And you hear this buzzword out there, omni-channel. Everybody's omni-channel, but that is really the truth. I mean, you look at, for instance, Penn National, and what they're doing with Barstool, right? So you've got the large bricks and mortar, install around the world, around the country with lots and lots of casinos. You got the Barstool brand. They're rolling out their sports betting technology, right? So if you can sort of own that player, sometimes they want to go out with their friends or their significant other on a Friday night, have a steak dinner, go to the casino, or they want to be at home with their buddies watching football on a Sunday, and they're on the app, right? If you can sort of know as much as you can about that player and market to them accordingly, it's ultimately going to accrue to your benefit. You're
Right.
going to get a bigger slice of their wallet, just like the physical world, right? Sometimes you want to, you want your new iPhone that day,
Yeah.
right? So you're going to order it on Best Buy and show up at the store.
Sure.
Or maybe you're willing to wait a couple of days and have it mailed to you, or maybe you don't really want to look at it, so you just order it on Amazon. It's all about giving people what they want, when they want it. And there's a lot of interesting companies. You mentioned Sightline is behind some of this. Acres Gaming is around some of the technology. Every, for instance, is in the payments business. So there's a lot of folks in the space currently trying to figure out a solution for this.
Yeah, I guess as a player with no skin in the game, right? So just as a person who would use the tech and not inventing it, I'm hoping because they all got cool ideas. I'm like, just bring it all together, right? Just smush it, because then it's the ultimate thing, right?
Sharing it's a race to the finish,
sharing is
man.
caring. That's
Who
what I'm
can
saying,
acquire
right?
as
Who goes
many
first?
players?
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how they compensate or give back to the players that are on their platform. That's going to be a wild ride too, because it's as easy as me just downloading another app. It's not like I have to go drive another 25 minutes to another casino to get points.
Right.
It's like download, done,
bang,
buy,
here we go.
buy X company, right?
Absolutely, and I'll tell you, I live in New Jersey, so by just sheer luck,
hold it against you.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm a Jets fan, unfortunately, but I know we've got the draft coming up. But it's interesting because in this COVID time, right? You're home. I wasn't going down to Atlantic City or going to the Borgata. I probably downloaded close to 10 different apps, and I'm not active on all of them, but I certainly try them all out. Sometimes you're on BetMGM, sometimes you're on FanDuel, DraftKings. It's part of my investment banking diligence. I'm trying to get a laugh
For
out of
sure,
you guys.
yeah. But, I was going to say it's research. No, it's good, yeah.
But ultimately,
I was like, hey, I do the same thing.
We use the same excuse. So we're like, no, we're good.
But ultimately, there's not a lot of loyalty, right? So what's going to get me to stick with that provider versus the other guy who might have another incentive that week or month?
Yeah, it's incentives, and then it feels like in the sports world, at least, like as you mentioned Barstool earlier, they do some creative betting, right? Where they'll go, hey, like Dave Portnoy is like the president or the owner, of the company, and he goes, here's my picks, and if you bet with me, I'll boost it, and it's like, I would never make that bet, but because you told me to make the bet and gave me a little incentive, like just an extra raise.
It's kind of scary.
I'm in.
They can sway the line by doing that. It's
For sure.
kind of a wild.
What's
the
probably
social
part
piece
of what's
is very
going on.
interesting, and I think that's ultimately going to be a differentiator, because if you guys are sitting down on a Sunday and you can talk smack to each other in your app and bet against each other, maybe your action is juiced by
nobody would listen to us.
Well, so far they have, but on bets, I don't know that I'm the guy to bet sports with, but I do it more though, like some more and more. Just to your point about research, I downloaded all the apps in Nevada, and then I'm going, actually, I kind of like this. So now I gamble even when I'm not. So normally I only bet on my teams, which is probably the idiot sports betting move. But the other day I was like, I'm just betting on all the not my teams, and I got them right. So it was like a $10 parlay. I turned into like $150, but I was like, hey, you know what? Why not? Right? Because it's fun and that's what we do.
It's entertainment.
So outside of what you're investing in, what area in gaming most excites you? And it could be something that you're heavily investing in, or just what excites you the most in gaming? Like what's changing the most, or what excites you?
Yeah, I mean, it's again, I can't invest.
Right.
I want to caveat
full
that.
disclosure.
But, I obviously help manage our balance sheet capital. We've got lots of capital. We're a big lender across the gaming industry, but I'd say back to that earlier point, that what excites me the most is this convergence between, bricks and clicks. And, we're going to see a tremendous amount of change over the next couple of years. I think, certainly, just coming back to Las Vegas here, I've been here now, 3 times since COVID. You can feel the energy, picking up here in Vegas, right? You've got the Resorts World that, is about to open. You got Cirque that's, called 6-7 months open. So I think we're going to see a big pickup, in this town. I think it's also pretty interesting that you see the locals business being really, really strong with all the inflow of folks moving in from California. The low tax rate environment in Nevada is attracting businesses and folks to relocate here. So I'm pretty, I'd say, pretty upbeat and optimistic about the entire gaming sector for the next couple of years, because the consumer, right? People have been cooped up at home for a year. They have been out with their friends and family. They haven't really traveled, and you're really starting to see that green shoots of demand, not just in Vegas, but obviously the regional gaming markets are picking up nicely as well.
Yeah, it has felt like regionally, and I always think for whatever reason non-Vegas is tribal, but it's not always tribal. But like the regional markets have seemed strong. The tribes have felt strong, so it's good. It feels like the gambling industry is coming back a little. just whether it's stimulus checks or, just local economies restoring as more and more people get vaccinated. But yeah, I mean, the numbers everywhere we go, everyone's like, that's a record March. It's a record April. It's like, okay, well, that's great.
You had a wild stat. You looked up a stat last night. We were looking at Barstool, and you talk about bricks and clicks. We were talking about technology. Every app kind of has its own little feature or coolness about it.
Yeah.
So how do you win the bricks and clicks game? Is it a marketing content game, or is it a technology feature game?
Yeah.
And there's kind of a wild ride in between, right? Because you're right. I mean, bricks and clicks are huge right now.
Yeah.
How do you win that game?
That's the $64,000 question. I think a lot of people are trying to figure that out. But I think ultimately brand matters, right?
Yeah.
So you have folks like an MGM who have a really powerful, well-recognized brand. If they can sort of bring it all together with the brand, with the technology, with some differentiation points, or hey guys, you gamble on the app, you win some points, you get that trip, ultimately to Las Vegas. No different than the history of regional gaming in the past, where you're playing at the local casino in Atlantic City or Council Bluffs, Iowa, and then you're taking that trip ultimately out to Vegas. So I think that's TBD, and we'll certainly sort of see how that unfolds next couple of years. But it's pretty fascinating. Then you have other companies that are, online brand only, like DraftKings, right? Who have a ton of resources.
Revolution.
A lot of capital, and they're developing a customer, base and affinity around that.
Yeah, that's fascinating. The battle's heating up, right? Because the DraftKings, the FanDuels with the no land-based presence versus the Barstool's kind of the hybrid, because they were always online. Then Penn brought them and anchored them back to land-based, right? So it'll be interesting to see.
Wait till you put iGaming in that, and you have to merge the iGaming platform with the sports betting platform, with the esports betting platform, with the. It's a lot. It's fun.
And to answer your question from before, I mean, there's a lot of new technology out there, right? There's the parlay, daily fantasy product that you're seeing, Monkey Knife Fight, for instance, is an acquisition Bally made. There's a company we've been doing work with called Betcha that's a similar, type of technology. So you have that product. You got historical horse racing out there. You've got new types of bingo. You got new types of lottery. I mean, there's whoever thought lottery would be cool. I mean, we took
on my phone.
We took a company public in November called Neo Games out of Israel, and they're a big online lottery operator. Growing very significantly in places like Michigan, for instance.
Yeah, sure.
That's a new technology. There's a company that I'm sure you guys have tracked called Jack Pocket.
Yeah,
that's
about that
I'm the type of person who would probably buy one lottery ticket a year. But if I don't have to go down to 7-Eleven or a convenience store, I can just pull out my phone when there's that $500 million giant Jack. Not that your odds are any better,
probably
but
worse,
you're like, I'll give it a shot. I'll take a look. Right? If I can just pull out my phone and buy a lottery ticket, that's pretty exciting. So I think we're at that dawn of a new era in technology across the space. That's just quite interesting.
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny in that scenario, I can't tell you how many the value of paper money versus electronic money. Electronic money might as well be monopoly money to me. Like I'll be on my phone going, $40 for that. Why not? Just send it to the house. If I was in a store to buy it, I'd be like, I'm not paying $40 for that, right? And then it shows up, I'm going, I just got taken. But so it's easier.
The lottery piece is interesting because if I'm not going to mention any sites online right now because I don't want to give them until they pay us.
No free ads. Nice.
But they're blending slot machines with lottery outcomes, and it's almost like Class 2 online.
Sure.
It's the new Class 2. Back in the day, they're like, you can't have Class 3. They're like, sweet, we figured out how to make slot machine based off bingo balls. Guess what? It's happening online now.
Yeah.
It's called lottery gaming.
Yeah.
And it's legal.
Yep.
It's the loophole online.
And if you don't know that, you wouldn't know it. Right? Like playing the product.
Well,
and
the content's good. I mean, it looks and plays just like a regular slot machine.
Lennon plays it. He's got over 1 million views on TikTok. So, as it goes, it's definitely entertaining.
3 million?
Oh, my fault. I mean, a kneecap you there. So I want to clarify something you said. So when you said earlier, like, I don't invest, so we're clarifying that. Yeah. Do you mean that in the sense that you personally don't invest because it's a conflict with what you do, or in your position, you're not the one actually investing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really helping our bank use our capital to get behind companies who have balance sheet needs, right? So for instance, back to this, Bally's transaction around GameSys, we're lending capital to them. We're helping them, bridge the financing of this company towards its ultimate completion of its acquisition. We played a pretty significant role in their equity raise recently. So they went out into the public markets, they sold a bunch of stock. to give them proceeds to make this acquisition. So I'm not personally investing my money.
Right, fair enough. Yeah. I figured
precluded
that.
from that, unfortunately, in the space,
okay.
given how much these stocks have gone up in the last couple of years.
Like,
And
I know too much.
Exactly. I knew too much, and it's certainly not worth the risk. But
Yeah.
I'm serving as a guide and a liaison for our bank to make sure we make the right decisions with our capital and ultimately help our shareholders.
Interesting. So you really are like the bridge or the connector where you're going, okay, let's say us two knuckleheads are looking to make some money, raise some money. Then you go, okay, well, you're not going to write the check, but you're going to maybe advise somebody this would be a good one, and then they do it together.
Yeah, and we look at tons and tons of projects, and having been around the industry for over 20 years, you know a lot of people, and you have that ultimate sense of what you think can work and might not work. And you're not always right, but it's sometimes better to err on the side of caution.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I would imagine, especially given the volumes and some of the high-profile projects you guys have done, like how many proposals are you look at? Thousands probably in a year. What would you say is like your general agree to do something with them rate? Like, is it a 5% success rate for people pitching you, or what's the?
I think a good investment banker looks at every opportunity, and my job ultimately is to put my ear to the ground and build relationships, and you just never know where something is going to lead, right? So we recently, and I can't say who, but we're getting mandated to help sell a company.
Okay.
And I sat down with this company pre-revenue, about 3.5-4 years ago, where I cold called the founder and found their contact information on LinkedIn, and we had a breakfast meeting and said, let's stay in touch. He said, hey, I'm looking to get some potential investors, or can you make a couple of introductions for me, right? So you make those introductions, you see what happens, and ultimately you hope that they pick up the phone and call you when it's time to sell, right? So just like, let's say that real estate agent who thinks there could be a house for sale ultimately, right? You sort of hang around the hoop, but it's probably for every 150 lines you cast, you're only going to catch a couple fish, but you ultimately, it's gratifying to help advise that client. And, these are folks that are entrepreneurs in many instances who have a great idea or a great business, and you help them sort of see that to fruition, which is really cool.
Yeah. I'll say, I think your element of it is probably the most valuable piece, not just because you bring the money, but like the idea, like we talk about business all the time, Len and I, and the piece we have no idea about is what you guys do. What we're like, I don't know how to do that. Like, like that sounds like good. Like you have a good idea, or you have a good product. Like I know a couple of my buddies have like products that they've designed, and I'm like, that's pretty cool. They're like, how do we raise money? Like, I don't know. Couldn't tell you, right? Like, I don't know. Like, they don't teach you that. Yeah, I was going to say, maybe Joel will help you out, right? But it's just one of those things where you go, that's like such a mysterious world, I feel like, to most people. So to have a guy like you that navigates all that, connects with the real world side of the business.
And sometimes you just have to really simplify it and hold their hand, right? Because these are folks that are maybe entrepreneurs, and they're an expert on slot machines, they're an expert on sports betting or iGaming, but they don't know finance, right? So your job is sort of hold their hand, educate them, explain to them what their options are, and sort of how they want to go down the road and pursue whatever it is that they want to do.
No doubt.
So was this? Here comes my awesome question. So, there was a huge shift, obviously, this year or last year rather, and into this year. So, say you're managing, let's just say $1 billion, right? A book of business for your bank, and you're heavily invested in, call it like brick and mortar expansions. You're heavily invested in slot machine manufacturing. And then all of a sudden, you have this huge shift into gaming, iGaming, and sports betting. Do you pull your money out of that and you reinvest it, or do you have to find more money? Is that kind of
no, it doesn't work that way.
Okay.
And there was certainly some sleepless nights last March, April.
Sure,
I was actually coming off a knee surgery. Wasn't playing football. I blew my knee out skiing with a client. Jeez. And I'm laid up in bed. I'm hobbling around on crutches. The stock market's, cratering day by day. But, you had to sort of at that point, I've been around this industry long enough that I've now seen a couple of cycles where I lived through the 2009, 10 experience. I saw a little bit of it on the front end and, post 9/11. And that was ultimately a time where you got to be there for your client and you got to step up. So it was really a lot of speaking to people internally saying, folks, trust me, this industry will come back when people are allowed to travel again. They've been gambling for 5,000 years. They're probably want to go back to Las Vegas. So it was a lot of just, touch and go, hand holding moments, but it was also a great time to step up for your clients, right? You're on the phone with CEOs and CFOs and they're saying, Joel, how do I keep how do I keep the lights on? Right. How do I, I'm going through difficulty. I had to lay off 99% of my staff today, right? And you're like, okay, we're going to support you. We're going to work with our credit folks and our lending committees. We're going to make sure we support you and get some amendments and changes to your language so you have a little bit of breathing room.
Sure.
Or hey, we really need capital. We're going to go help you, raise an equity round in the markets. We're going to help you, sell some stock, or we're going to help you raise a debt instrument to give you liquidity. And there's a lot of that going on a year ago, and we've come full circle where now it's just let's get back and let's pursue growth, and the industry is looking positive again. But I couldn't pull our $2 billion of capital and say we're out of here.
Sorry guys, I got some other cool thing.
Bring me the check. There's a lot of other cool stuff happening. Good luck over here. Though.
Man, I'd be worried about Landon here now. He's like, oh, you're not cool anymore. I'm going to the next guy. So ski story. So were you able to ski down the hill on the one knee, or did you have were you airlifted out?
Yeah, I took the sled ride of death.
Doom.
Down, but live to fight another day back.
Those are always the worst falls when you're like, I'm going so fast, I'm going too fast,
and I'm done. I'm done. Somebody come get me.
Yeah.
Oh man! So I remember once I was skiing just randomly. I'm not a very good skier, but I was skiing and it was.
I don't see a lot of 6'6" guys.
No, believe me, I worry about the people in front of me because if I can't stop, it's death
two
for everybody.
Canoes.
Just hammering. But there was once we were hanging out and I went a little bit sideways, and it's like where most guys go, oh, it's the fresh powder. I just sank in like a cartoon. I was up to my thighs in snow, and I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna get the skis out. It took me half an hour just to undig myself from the skis. So thankfully I didn't blow out my knee. But it's crazy. So you mentioned we had Chad Bynan on, and he was talking about, he mentioned you in a weird way. He didn't call you out directly, but he was like, he goes, my boss at the time had me at third on the depth chart, but then, so as frustrating as that is to a guy like Chad, that would infuriate me. I'm super competitive, the same. Ultimately, he said it was good for him, and it kind of helped him grow, and obviously he's doing well now. So I think that's a little bit maybe to your leadership style. So when you're looking at whether now it's either grooming up-and-coming bankers or working with somebody under your charge, how do you approach that? Do you have any tips and tricks, or what do you?
I mean, outside, I did chuckle when I heard Chad say that. I think I was out for a run and listening to his podcast. I'm like, what? He's trash talking me? Jeez.
Not by name, at least.
Yeah, but no, it's I've been fortunate to have a lot of great mentors in my career.
Sure.
Folks that ultimately became CEOs and CFOs and board members who gave me a lot of career advice, or I had some first couple of bosses in my career who worked me really hard and just said, I'm going to push you and kind of get you out of your comfort zone. And that was sort of the idea behind saying that to Chad. Right. I knew he was sort of the person when I interviewed him, but I think you want to give folks as much latitude and runway to to learn the job. And my philosophy is I want folks that if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, they can take over.
Right.
And you build people up and you give them more responsibility than they can handle, and they ultimately grow. Yeah. And that also keeps them engaged and wanting to kind of work harder for you because they feel like they're learning.
Yeah.
And I get a lot of pride out of that, 20 plus years on Wall Street, seeing, a majority of the folks that have worked on my team, develop and blossom and have really successful careers across, different parts of investment banking, research, investing, et cetera.
Yeah, no, that's fast. It's funny. Somebody asked me that the other day. They go, do you try to hire your replacement every time? And I go, yeah, I'm not afraid of that, right? Because I feel like ultimately it'll push you further because you're going, man, I got these guys are coming for it. I got to work harder to keep my starting job or to keep the title, right, or whatever. So
I liked what Casey Whalen said on his pod. He's like, I want to hire people better than me because that just makes me look stronger.
And makes your life easier.
Yeah. He's like, I know what I'm good at.
Yeah.
These things I'm not good at.
Sure.
So come on.
Yeah.
So that was shout out to Casey there.
Oh man. So I didn't actually connect these dots. So you just said it's 20 years in Wall Street. Was that already too late from the old school era of Wall Street? Like we see the movies where they're doing, martini lunches and who knows what else. That you came in after that? Or?
Caught the tail end of that, but it's certainly a young person's business, and that's why I'm out for runs, pretty much every morning, staying fit and healthy. But it's a fascinating business, and you're always meeting really smart folks, and you got to be on your toes. And even when I'm coming out here to Las Vegas, right, I'm going to be sitting down with all these executives, so you've got to be on point,
right,
and bring your A game because you're going to get challenged. And my job is to sort of be a thought leader, and have lots of ideas and content. And you have to stay sharp. But Wall Street's a very interesting place, and I was fortunate that from a very young age, I just kind of knew this was my path.
Right.
I just didn't know it would lead to investment banking.
Sure.
But it started at a young age, and we were talking earlier about sort of what got you into gaming.
Yeah.
I probably think about it. It's funny now to see this coming full circle with the whole collectibles phenomenon, NFTs and other things. And, I had a baseball card trading business when I was in high school.
Yeah.
And I was, I knew how many home runs Don Mattingly hit in 1984, what his batting average was.
Jeez.
So I was, trading and talking about value and valuation at a young age, not obviously knowing that was going to be my career of talking about how to value this company and what your company could be worth versus this company and what it might cost to acquire them. So there's little kind of, signposts along the way that sort of led to, this career.
I have a question, and we didn't bring it up, and I kind of wanted to, but I won't mention the company again. But how can you lose $250 million a year or $300 million and be valued at $1 billion?
Yeah, these are fascinating questions. We don't have to call anyone specifically out, but it's interesting. You get these huge values. You're going, they just lost $100 million. How is it possible?
How are they worth $1 billion, but they're losing?
People are still
$100
dumping
million
money
a year.
Well, I mean, in all seriousness, that is a great question. I mean, I think a lot of it, I'm not going to get into get on my soapbox on an economics 101 lesson and put your listeners to sleep. But it all has to do with interest rates at the end of the day right now.
Yeah.
And right now, interest rates are really low.
Right.
And so people are like, what can I put my money in that has growth and has a potential sort of risk-adjusted return attached to it, right? So while interest rates are low, you're going to see people chase businesses that have a huge growth profile and hope it all works out in the meantime.
Right.
And and see how it unfolds over the next couple of years. But again, if you take it at a high level, right, you hear this thing called TAM.
Yeah, right.
That's the total addressable market.
Yep.
And iGaming, sports betting, it could be a massive market, right? If you look at bricks and mortar gaming, whether it's commercial or tribal, and I haven't looked at the numbers recently, I think it's like a $60 billion market,
it's
right?
massive.
That's just here in the U.S., right? So if you think about what is sort of what's the air worth in terms of this online gaming sports betting piece where you're not at a casino and it's more convenient, you're on your phone, you're going after a younger demographic, maybe the market is big enough to justify it. So we'll certainly see how that unfolds over the next few years.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah, and it's
The air is worth a
fascinating
lot,
to
I
look
think.
at the oversaturation of brick and mortar. Can I say that? And then look at the online piece and see how they adapt technology with the online piece to continue to get their same brick and mortar play. It's going to be crazy. It's literally so exciting to watch all this unfold.
Right.
Yeah.
But again, I just want to figure out how we could be worth $1 billion and just lose money. Currently, the Max Bet
winning
podcast
personalities,
well,
losing.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head.
You
I mean,
never know.
look at that convergence between media and gaming, right?
It's
you
massive,
see all the media companies that didn't want to be associated with gambling in the past now.
Yeah.
They're scrambling
they all
to buy.
want to find
Throw a
partners.
value on us, Mike, right now. That's what we're worth.
Billion. I'm going with that. I'll
Done.
just use your
We're
pie in the
worth
sky.
it.
You're the pie in the sky
Hey,
guy,
what's
so
cool
I'm not
about
going to
us
pop your
is
balloon.
we've only lost like a couple $1,000.
Easy.
So
We
could
normally
easily
it's
be
funded by
worth it.
gambling wins. That's how we work.
Yeah, there it is.
Perfect.
Run it for cash.
Speaking of gambling
gam-
wins,
yeah,
I was
you
just
wanna
gonna
go?
say, segue.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, so you're not only well-traveled, but you're also a gambler yourself. So
A little bit.
When we
Little
think
bit.
about memorable gambling stories, does anything come to mind for you?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, nothing huge. I think I sort of talked about earlier, betting, horses.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one thing that was really interesting because I've been to hundreds of casinos all around the world, and I still will never forget, the first time I went to Macau, right? And we all know what a big gaming market Macau is. And, I was sort of your naive American, I've been relatively well-traveled, but I had never been to Asia until 2006. And I remember going to the Galaxy Star World, which is one of the original, call it new casinos in Macau. I was with a bunch of investors. We're going over to kick the tires. And we walk, and they take us into the VIP section, and you're like, whoa, what's going on here? And these guys were gambling stacks of chips yay high. And I'm like,
They're all worth
how
like
much is
1,000
that? How much
apiece.
is that guy? And this is baccarat tables. And they're like, yeah, it's $500,000 a hand. And they're just like, hit.
Just life-changing
Couldn't even
amounts.
imagine.
Just
It's
like
no
it's
big
like
deal.
a $2 bet for you and me. And it really dawned on me what a massive business this was, and just how much wealth is in that region. And these guys are sitting around in their athleisure gear at the time, and you're like, who is that guy? But he owns this factory and that factory. So that was just a wow moment where I've seen high roller rooms in Vegas. I've been at over at the Mansion at MGM, but they're gambling like $100,000 a hand, not $500,000.
Yeah.
Like
Change.
it's nothing.
Yeah.
So
It's
that
only
was,
$100,000.
Crazy rich
that was a pretty
Asians.
eye-popping moment for me. Of wow,
wild.
this is a really interesting place here.
That's fascinating. He wins one hand. He pays off most people's house. He's like, I don't know, press it. Just do it
Yeah.
Can you
again.
imagine going to buy a car with that kind of cash? He's like, it's $250,000. You're like, ha! What is that?
Yeah.
There's a couple chips, just like throws it on the tray.
Yeah.
Well, since we did a little role reversal
Yeah,
there, I
that's
guess
all right.
I'll
You
ask
challenge them,
the challenge question. We started this, which is kind of cool because we actually launched our first podcast exactly 1 year ago today.
Yeah.
So this is pretty neat. And we
yeah.
started this challenge. We are now doing a live interview, which is kind of rad as well.
Yeah, it's fun.
And we wanted to get people excited, and so we said have people call other people out.
Okay.
It's kind of like the ice bucket challenge, and we took that name away and we called it the Max Bet Challenge.
Yeah.
So, who are you challenging, good
That's
sir?
tough. I mean, I could give you like 50 people,
I
but
know.
I had to really think long and hard about this. And I did not tell him, and I'm not sure if he's
Perfect.
a podcast listener for you
Okay.
guys yet, but I'm going to make sure he is
Soon
after
will be.
this.
Yeah.
Steve Galloway. So
Okay.
Steve Galloway is maybe a name you're not familiar with. Steve runs
No.
Global Market Advisors. They're one of the industry's leading consultancies. They do a lot of market feasibility work and analysis, and historically around bricks and mortar. Now it's on sports betting and iGaming. But, again, I've probably been to 300 casinos around the world. Steve's probably been to 600 in countries you've never heard of.
Yeah, right.
And he's really the person that is called by, governments and other investors and folks when they're looking at gaming for the first time, legalizing it. So Steve is a very fascinating guy. He grew up in the space. His dad actually I met him at the beginning of my career. His dad was named Jack Galloway. He passed away a number of years ago. Jack was the CEO of Isle of Capri.
Oh, wow.
So, Steve lived all around the country. I think he lived in Vegas at one point growing up, Atlantic City, Reno. So he's literally grown up in the industry and has built this interesting consultancy and can talk to you about, casinos in Kyrgyzstan or, some other stan that
Interesting.
you've never heard of that's looking at
We
this.
do, yeah.
So he's probably got some great stories for you about, going to a lot of far-flung locations.
Awesome. Yeah, that'll be
That's
fun.
a great call out.
Love it. Steve, hopefully you're listening, and we're coming, buddy.
Yeah.
We'd love to chat with you.
You've been called out. We always also like to ask if there's anything you want to get out on the podcast before we close
miss
it out.
anything?
Did we miss anything? You got
Think you guys hit the nail on the head. Landon, your hair is as good as advertised. You got a hat on.
Capped it. Yeah.
I can't do it. The little headphones thing.
Too much. Yeah.
Crazy.
The headphones.
Mike,
wouldn't work
it's
over
not
there.
too late for an NFL career. I think
guess,
the
man.
Jets need a couple of offensive linemen.
Dude, I'll tell you one thing. Yeah, the Jets. Maybe I have a chance with the Jets. I was doing the slip and slide with the kids. It's just how ridiculous. And the next day I was like ridiculously sore. I'm like, I couldn't play football today. There's no chance. Forget about not training in the gym hard enough, but just the pounding. I don't have any clue how these guys do it. But hopefully I'll stick to this and see if the face that I have for radio will translate well. But oh man, Joel, we appreciate you coming up though, man. This was awesome. Thanks for making time for us. And
Yeah, appreciate you. Thank you.
like I said, you'll forever in the history books with us, my friend.
Good factoid.
Appreciate
Thanks
it.
a lot.
Awesome. Thanks,
Cheers.
brother.
Cheers.
Cheers.